This video is sponsored by War Thunder. You've heard the saying, right? They walked so somebody else could run. There is a reason the term Destiny Killer is garnished to every looter shooter after Destiny, and it's because at Bungie's best, they were untouchable. But at their worst, the whole world criticizes and scrambles to anything else in hopes it makes Bungie have to bring their best again. Destiny Killer is a saying so grinded down that my channel has turned it into an ironic statement. In the last episode in this series, we touched on Curse of Osiris and its horrific impact it would have on the Destiny franchise, although a lot of its issues were the systems surrounding it. With the end of Osiris's curse, which we didn't even learn what the curse was, we were left with the other DLC named Warmind. Similar content structure, but Warmind would deliver so much more quality in its runtime when given the same systems Osiris was cursed with. So, we're going to talk about the DLC that saved Destiny. I think by the end of this video, my reasoning will be fully explained. If you have played Destiny, you know Forsaken most definitely saved the series, but Warmind made decisions and changes that Forsaken would benefit from greatly. It was slept on by the majority of the fandom, and even though I am the biggest Forsaken lover and glazer, I can admit a lot of decisions in Warmind absolutely saved the game. So, let's talk about the post-Osiris era and the beginning of Destiny 2's golden age. I want to say that this video will cover the entirety of Warmind from the very start to the very end. I will also say that this marks the 8th video in this series, and the Forsaken 4 years later video, although not made in this format, will still count for a video in this series to me. So after this one, I will skip Forsaken and Black Armory and move straight into Season of the Drifter. Sorry guys, those already have videos. I will also be combining some seasons that were smaller and not very good into larger DLC videos. Looking at you, Season of Undying. Okay, I hope this has clarified a lot for the series. Be sure to like and subscribe to show support. If this video somehow, some way, gets 10,000 likes, I will change the title to the top like comment suggestion. Just keep it in the format of the blank that blank Destiny. Okay, thanks guys. Warmind was developed by Vicarious Visions in 2018, a smaller portion of Activision that was assigned to work with Bungie on the development of Destiny 2. They would help make some future seasons and are widely responsible for the PC port of the game. Warmind was coming out at a time that most players of Destiny were bound to ignore. Off the back of one of the worst received DLCs, you would be shocked to find someone playing the game. The dead game discussions were rising more by the day, and Vicarious Visions were met with an impossible task. Fix the game with the systems that got it there to begin with. Invent a depth of loot chasing in a game with one-time set roll drops. Make a raid harder than players had ever seen. Add something genuinely new. Hell, do that and then some. The development of Warmind was driven by Bungie's goal to expand the universe of Destiny 2. Emphasis on the 2 and not the 1 there. Instead of a sandy Mars, we have an icy one. Instead of fighting the Cabal, we find ourselves discovering an ancient faction of Hive. Bungie wanted to address some of the feedback from the game's initial release, and this was going to be the testing grounds before the behemoth Forsaken. The expansion centers around the character Rasputin, the ancient Warmind before he was sent to the Shadow Realm years later. In terms of missions, there are very few, and they are very par for the course of old Destiny missions. These were the days when the depth of the grind outweighed the mission variety and the genuine impactful story. With that being said, some of these missions are at least memorable. A lot of Warmind's time was spent on activities, and the missions are really excuses to shine light on the spaces you would visit, show you a small glimpse of collectibles, and of course, strikes. Warmind started like this.
Guardians aren't supposed to investigate their past. That's the rule. But I'm not good with rules. Not when there's this much at stake. The Clovis Bray tech in that building allowed us to colonize the system during the Golden Age. They sought to create peace for all humanity. Which is ironic, because they also built Rasputin, the single most powerful weapon in the solar system. Either way, it's all been entombed on Mars since the collapse, along with something far more terrifying.
I always loved the juxtaposition of going from one of the most cinematic and fantastic cutscenes to just, well, Mission 1. This was back when Anna Bray was voiced by Jamie Chung and not Erika Ishii, so she will sound different in this footage. Anna tells us that an entire army of Hive are here to destroy Mars. This was also the first Destiny 2 emphasis on Clovis Bray and his involvement with Destiny, laying the tracks for future ideas in the series. They mention his name a few times in Destiny 1, but here, they really go hard on it. Right off the bat, you might think that these Hive that were in the ice would have a lot new features to them, but you would be mistaken. Outside of cool entrances of enemies popping out of the ground and walls, these Hive are almost no different at all. From what I remember and could tell you from revisiting this footage, the Hive were just given a makeover in design a little bit, and the Curse Thralls will slow you down on explosions, but that's about it. By the end of this mission, checking out pieces of Mars, we are met with an ogre that looks incredibly unique, something close to the Court of Oryx ogres back in the day, but it was an easy fight to get to the next cutscene. In 2018, a lot of these boss fights that are simple mission bosses now were not quite as power crept as they would be now, so even a boss like this would take a lot longer to kill, with double primary especially.
Hey, you made it.
Anna Bray, sporting the Polaris Lance, an exotic weapon we were going to get soon from the DLC. So far, this DLC seems really lackluster, right? I mean, we just landed here, and the best opening is a run and gun with an ogre and no Hive changes at all. Well, this is what I mean when I say the game wasn't focused on giving the player a massive story. Instead, the core of the experience took priority, as you will sort of see in the next mission, Pilgrimage. This mission gives us some answers on Rasputin and the mystery that it was. You need to understand that for a lot of Destiny players, Rasputin was thought to be a villain in the narrative, thinking that Rasputin shot the Traveler and left it scarred to be bound with humanity. We had left off only over a year before with Rasputin being infected with Siva to our knowledge, so yeah, it was a big scary AI robot villain to a lot of people in 2018. Anna tells us that Rasputin on Earth and other places was just fragments. The real major one was here the whole time. That would have been nice to know in Rise of Iron. We could have just flown out here and maybe had a talk over a nice cup of gamer subs or something, using code Evan of course. This is where we enter the Braytech Futurescape, the hub of the area. I think it's funny that Clovis wasn't cast as a voice actor for the game yet, so they used this generic AI butler sounding concierge.
Anastasia Bray. Welcome to the Clovis Bray Research Facility, the fabled cradle of invention on Mars.
So we explore deeper, and that wonderful Warmind music really kicks in.
This facility is massive.
The Brays dream big.
As players climbed, they were greeted with the Valkyrie. Not a hot Viking or one of the bosses from God of War who could also stomp on me, but instead a new relic with its own attacks. A charged range attack like a javelin spear, and a melee one which would explode on impact. Bungie would reuse this relic and rebrand it with the synaptic spears and the Witch Queen. After all the enemies were clear, you could finally, after 4 years in the series, meet Rasputin.
Surprise, motherfucker.
What? Was he just standing there the whole time? Menacingly? Zavala wanted to tell me about the only way to save Mars, and that isn't a Warmind this time. It's a whole set of leaked military documents. Just kidding, it's War Thunder. One of, if not the most versatile games in the vehicle war genre out there to date, and it's currently free on PC, PlayStation, and Xbox. What Warmind can give you 2,500 tanks, planes, helicopters, and battleships of 10 major nations from all throughout history to control. You can immerse yourself in the world of fast-paced and intense combat against all manner of intricately designed vehicles that you will face while playing. War Thunder features an extensive amount of customization options, so you, the player, can build the vehicle of your dreams, with a vast range of camouflages and decorations. Best of all, new players or players that haven't played in 6 months will receive an epic bonus pack that includes multiple premium vehicles, the exclusive vehicle decorator Eagle of Valor, 100,000 Silver Lions, and 7 days of premium accounts. It's not available forever, so get in fast. Thank you to War Thunder again. So no Rasputin yet. Instead, we need to fight the antagonist of this DLC, named Xol. The idea of fighting a worm god was also exciting in the series. We heard tales of Oryx rising to power by defeating Akka and gaining the abilities to take. So what could Xol grant us power with after he was defeated? Off-World Recovery was the name of the next mission, and it was the most generic one, so I am basically skipping it. The premise is defeating the Taken and grabbing a fragment of the Traveler to help beat Xol. It was basically one big excuse to bring the Taken into the story after they had no relevance in Red War and Curse of Osiris. I do remember the Defend the Warmind section being really tough in year 1, but that's it. You kill Taken, and then Anna asks Rasputin to shoot down the Taken's shield.
Word set armed and in position. Requesting orbital support.
Anna, how did you get it to fire?
I asked him. Rasputin was created to help humanity. He listens to me.
This time the Warmind listened. But are you ready to shoulder the burden the day it doesn't? Guardian, secure the piece of the Traveler and get back to Mars. It is time to go to war with a god.
Next mission, Strike. Yes, the last 2 missions are strikes. And that was pretty divisive amongst the community. It doesn't help that there was a PS4 only strike named Insight Terminus 2 back then, so yeah, that was a thing in 2018. I personally didn't love this method, because I always loved strikes being separate from the story, but this was a formula Bungie was going to use a lot in Destiny 2. Both of these strikes have been removed from the game along with Mars, but the Strange Terrain was up first. This version has different dialogue, more focused on Xol than Nokris, but it was a cool callback to Oryx in this mission. Nokris is a heretic, and Oryx's son who was exiled. Ghost mentioned that Nokris was exiled for resurrecting something, and my brain was racing with ideas back then. Was he going to try to resurrect Oryx? Was there a creature even more immense? At the time, I never really paid attention to the fact that the tunnels we were navigating through were Xol's trail slithering through. It made for a unique setting, a cavern that was not created by nature, but by a god. The strike was a really memorable one for the time, maneuvering through these caverns, grabbing and throwing relics, fighting mini-bosses, then a square off with Nokris himself. Nokris looked amazing as a strike boss, a truly unique design, and packed some light mechanics in here too. The fight was pretty standard, but I always loved how older strikes emphasized unique bosses and settings. The difference in this strike and the mission was at the end of it. This may sound familiar to the Whisper of the Worm mission, and that's because that mission literally just reused this audio bar for bar.
He copied my whole flow!
At least Xol is the Whisper of the Worm, so there's that.
Thank the light.
Xol is heading directly for the Clovis Bray facility and Rasputin. If Rasputin dies, the Javelin goes with him. Xol wins.
Very well. And my reservations about the Warmind aren't as important as defeating Zol. We do this together. What do you say, Guardian?
We say it's about time.
Final mission this time, and a hopeful final reveal of Zol. This was the Will of 1,000 strike, and it was okay. I think a lot of people remember the boss fight, but not the rest of the strike too well. A lot of the strike is just defend an area from Hive and throw javelins around. There was a sense of urgency in the mission version, but the strike itself just felt hollow at best. The most memorable part was at the end.
I've never seen anything so powerful. Be careful.
We finally got to kill a worm god. Sure, it was the weakest of all of them, in fact so weak that it was laughed at by all the others, but a worm god is a goddamn worm god. I remember one of my earlier videos on my channel was talking about how the lore of the game felt inconsistent to the moments we have in the game, and while it still is very true, I think that a lot of people were understandably frustrated that a god died in a strike versus a raid or secret mission. Hell, we didn't even have secret missions in Destiny 2 until this DLC. There was a really funny cheese with Zol and Anarchy that I still find hilarious because the boss just had no HP. So we finally got to see what Rasputin was, and believe it or not, he's a computer that speaks inverted Russian. I love his voice so much. It just sounds like a powerful AI. Everything about it is just great. Every time I hear his voice, I genuinely have to take a moment to appreciate it.
The Bray family shaped me to be an all-seeing savior.
I also love that we did get some answers on Rasputin, but the campaign was just a very fast way to boot you into the activities of the endgame. You could tell that Vicarious Visions followed the same mission structure as Curse of Osiris, but clearly the intentions were going to be different. I don't think Warmind is a good or even great campaign. I think it was mid to bad, and people at the time agreed, but everything else was really respected by the community. So let's talk about the most game-saving decisions Vicarious and Bungie ever made.
Defend humanity on my own terms.
Unlike Curse of Osiris, which famously featured 2 tokens and a blue, Warmind featured a secret mission, escalation protocol, 2 strikes with specific loot, world quests, exotic quests, RNG exotics, PvP maps, and a much stronger raid layer. To top this all off, Warmind launched Solstice of Heroes and the Go Fast update, and a real-life exotic quest. The Go Fast update was aimed at making the game about fun and less about pure competitive balance and bringing things back to Destiny 1. Paul Tassi would mention it all the way back then, saying that, quote, Bungie is not giving up on Destiny 2, partially because legally they can't, given their ongoing deal with Activision, but mostly because they genuinely want to make the series great again, and captured. This was the first DLC where Bungie's protege studio, Vicarious Visions, took point in crafting a full piece of content. It was clear what their mantra was: be more like the Taken King. Starting with the place most players would find themselves, Escalation Protocol. See, imagine loading into Mars and there's a public event going on. It has standard stuff like breaking crystals, standing in zones, and killing Hive. What if then it was cranked up in difficulty each round, with the final round being so hard, you would need 9 of the best players in the world to beat it for a chance at one of 3 weapons that were all best in slot. Of course you would be in that activity. Now add on that the bosses rotated each week and the mechanics would change each week per boss, give keys for armor sets that look clean, and you have a formula for something pretty great. Destiny's failure to maintain its strongest RPG mechanics will always blow my mind. If I see a cool boss, I want to wear its armor. I want to use its weapons. It's that simple, yet it feels so difficult for a game of Destiny's magnitude. Warmind may not have given you a flashy campaign, but it did give you the EP shotgun named the Ikelos SG, a shotgun so powerful and so rare that if you had it, players would add you as a friend immediately. This, the Ikelos SR sniper rifle, and the Ikelos SMG have all been staples in the game since their debut. These came with perk sets so extremely strong that even if they were set rolls because of Destiny 2's first year of stale rolls, you would still look at these like titans of weapons. Box breathing on Ikelos SR was so much stronger than now because the perk was originally hitting for about 30% more than it does now. I could go on and on about Escalation Protocol, but the fact is that it was depth on every level. Best in slot weapons for a ridiculously hard challenge at the time and requiring teamwork against unique bosses, each with their own mechanics and for great cosmetic and applicable rewards. I made a whole video on this mode a while back for a reason. When you thought the depth was only going to be in one place, it was, in fact, everywhere. See, there was an update called the Go Fast update just ahead of Warmind, stating the reason for it being that Bungie just wanted to go back to having fun, breaking the sandbox, letting people experience what Destiny 1 could all be about, and in general, it was the ultimate pursuit of the player experience. Bungie's quote goals were to provide individual players with more hero moments by increasing overall speed and mobility, increasing the amount of supers you could charge to demolish your enemies, and increasing the frequency and impact of our montage-worthy power weapons, especially in the Crucible. We talked about in Red War and Curse of Osiris that the game just felt slow. So what do? You shock some Go Fast in there. Bungie wanted the game to consistently update its sandbox to prepare for a lot, and if it wasn't clear, Warmind would be that testing ground. This update would add exotic updates, like making the tractor cannon into a staple of the franchise, the Graviton Lance into a behemoth, and more. This would also add the first ever pinnacle weapon to the game, the Redrix's Claymore. Not Broadsword, which was the Claymore reissued in Forsaken. This was such a tough grind that I can remember sitting in comp games for what felt like years to get it, and only a very select few had the gun, but my god did it shred. This was the point of pinnacle weapons to the game like Mountaintop and Recluse and more. These were the incentive to step up for the best loot in the playlist, and they were Bungie's best ideas by far. A little too good of an idea from Warmind. See, these were the weapons I said caused sunsetting, and while they're back in the game now, they just aren't the same. It's like watching LeBron James at 40 years old. He's still LeBron James. He's still the best at a lot of things, but he's not the 2016 demon he once was. But what was a demon? The Whisper of the Worm. We talked about this one a lot on the channel, so I won't stay here for too long. But the catalyst was data mined and known for quite some time, to the point where everyone was theorizing on where it could be. People thought pyramids were also connected because geometry looked like them, but no, it was just hidden in a public event. A secret mission with its own platforming and boss section, soundtrack, and yeah, this was the best secret mission Bungie had ever made to that point. It got the world talking about it and gave everyone a reason to come back to Destiny. So you can tell that Warmind is a lot of fixing of the core issues that the game needed, instead of focusing on giving you this cinematic story. Zol became the exotic sniper, but we became invested in this game-saving DLC. I think a lot of people were still waiting on Forsaken, but those who played Warmind, you'd be happily assured that Bungie of 2018 was really cooking. Aside from Sleeper Simulant and Polaris Lance's grindy exotic quests involving a lot of adventures and world quests, you did have a lot of depth of exploration. Dare I say way more creative than even modern day exploration? For example, the exotic sword Worldline Zero's quest was all about finding collectibles. These little colored Rasputin coins, is what I will call them, were scattered throughout Mars, and each of them had a little unique way to find them and to shoot them. You had to match the element. Sure, some of them were more obvious, but others required you to look very far away, and some would require you to break some vents in order to find them. By the end, you were given a sword that had its very own movement and depth. See, this sword was the first major movement tech in Destiny 2 for years, before its nerf. It wasn't intended that the sword would have the skating, but of course, people found a way, and it just happened timing-wise to line up here. At the time, you could worldline skate around, and while it's not faster than the tech of Destiny 2 today, it was still a sight to behold back then. Now, there was a puzzle that took 2 years to fully solve. The real-life javelin mystery of the Destiny community finding hints and cipher sequences in the game, piecing together the AI Rasputin into something even bigger. Warmind might have even been the precursor to complex puzzles like Niobe Labs and Corridors of Time, the same way that Outbreak Prime was. I have a full video on this Javelin story, but man, what a time this was to see the Destiny community finding remote locations and grabbing real-life spears for themselves. You could use the spear, but you're going to need to do a lot of scavenging to find the sleeper nodes, because these were a grind. I think this was one of the rare misses of the DLC, because while I loved the humming Rasputin song and finishing the nodes off, they had a lot of RNG to get correct nodes you needed to complete the entire collection. And there was dupes, so getting all nodes for some cosmetics was rough. That being said, Sleeper Simulant and Whisper the Worm were the best heavy weapons in Destiny 2 for a long time, and you were going to at least need a sleeper for the raid, because Whisper wasn't out yet. Yeah, that's right, the raid day 1 guy needs to talk about the raid layer Spire of Stars, one of the best experiences Destiny has ever had. It's not the best overall raid, but its final encounters and fun factor placed this one really high up. Even if the loot was just horrid from raid layers, these were meant to be tinier, but for the challenge and the spectacle of a raid in any capacity, 2 weapons and an armor set is just not good. On Prestige mode, Bungie would add the Sleeper Simulant Catalyst, one of the best ever made, which made the gun charge faster, but man, other than this and the amazing exotic emote, there wasn't much reason unless you were a raid nerd who loves a good encounter like myself. This DLC did add a metric ton of exotic weapons and armor aside from the 4 we talked about. Apotheosis Veil, Armamentarium, Ashenwake, Claws of Ahamkara, Eternal Warrior, Frosties, the Huckleberry, the Oculus Zol, Ophidius Spathe, Sanguine Alchemy, Sealed Ahamkara's Grasp, Suros Regime, Worm God Caress, Wormhusk Crown. These exotics were your RNG exotics and from Xur. And my god, was it just fun to grind some of these out. Now, some of them weren't very good, and some of them are better now, and some of them are worse now, and you get the point. But overall, having a collector's list of exotics and being able to grind them and farm them out in activities was what Destiny was all about. Those exotics would need the new Crucible maps Meltdown and Solitude to shine as well, since Bungie understood that difficult places for everyone to test new rewards is the key to success in the franchise. It's hard to please fans, but when you splash the fandom with many reasons to play the game, instead of a drip of a small mission every once in a while, and a trip to go collect a red border weapon, just to curate a god roll in just a few weeks, instead of a small mission every once in a while, they just care a lot more. My opinion, I will keep hammering home, is best summed up by Kirk Hamilton of GameSpot in his 2018 article. Quote, "This week, Destiny 2 got its second major expansion since it came out in last September. It's called Warmind, and in many respects, it's a disappointment. However, it benefits from the many changes Bungie is making to the game more broadly, and it succeeds in setting up a long, demanding grind that could keep some players busy until fall. I found myself with a pleasant array of things to pursue in Warmind's aftermath, and I won't complete most of those things anytime soon. I'm desperate for levels, but that hasn't stopped me from doing some of the content." So, with that being said, the overall player experience, maybe some of the reviewer experience of being a little bit more casual and more, let's talk about a conclusion. So yes, Warmind didn't have the best campaign. Yes, it was held back by a lot of what Destiny 2 was, but it was absolutely a great DLC for the hand it was dealt, and it would walk so Forsaken could fly. You have heard the Destiny Killer saying, and Bungie clearly echoed their own words in Warmind, as they steered the ship so fast the other way and back into Destiny 1 territory. Hopefully with a campaign, 3 total strikes, PvP maps, over 15 exotics, real-life puzzles, the first pinnacle weapon, a raid, escalation protocol with its own subset of fantastic loot, and an update that would shape the game for a whole year of fun, and Solstice, which would bring everybody back in its level grind, unique missions that we didn't even really talk about. Warmind absolutely cooked. It represented a step forward in the game's ongoing evolution. It built upon the original foundation, delivering new content and experiences while also making adjustments to improve player satisfaction. Its development reflects Bungie's commitment to expanding the Destiny universe and responding to the community needs. We can't leave this video without one more big thanks to War Thunder for sponsoring it. You can click the link on the pinned comment to play free right now on PC, PlayStation, or Xbox. And remember, if you're new or haven't played in the last 6 months, you get a huge bonus that includes multiple premium vehicles, in-game currency, and more. Thank you for watching. I think I would give Warmind a solid 9 out of 10 for the hardcore player experience. For the entire critical review, including story, I would probably give it close to a 7.5 or an 8. Hopefully these are 1997 reasons to remember it. And until the next Destiny Killer series video, I'll see you there.